Hey everybody, Jason Lawrence here. I want to talk about the rising building costs. It's definitely something that is becoming an issue. I will have some silver lining towards the end of this video. I'm always the glass half full type of person, so I don't believe this is something that is, you need to run into a hole and hide and worry drastically about this. So I'll hit that at the end. But so what's going on right now with the building costs? I don't know. Okay, so to put things in perspective, I'm going to take a 2,000 square foot ranch because that's kind of right in my wheelhouse. So this is the build cost. This does not include the lot. So this will include the lot improvements, sewer, water hookups, building permits, concrete driveway, grass, nice finishes in the home, not extravagant, but nice. Build cost for that home, not including the lot, is roughly $350,000. That exact same home today is going to be over $400,000. And the larger the home, the bigger the price difference. That was 2,000 square foot ranch. Let's say a 3,000 square foot ranch would have been, $425,000 to $450,000. Now that is, $500,000 plus easily. So that's the difference. And then if we take land, and there's going to be a natural increase for land prices because as lots run out, the prices increase there. So let's take that $350,000 home build. And last year you could probably easily still find a nice lot for $70,000. So you're, $420,000 to $430,000. Now you're paying $100,000 for the lot. And the build cost is over $400,000. So you're $425,000 up to now you're over $500,000. Exact same home, exact same lot. So that's if you're not in the building industry, that can kind of tell you what's going on. It's not just I don't just want to throw out lumber costs, material costs. What does that all equal to? Well, that's what it does. So, I was speaking with my dad earlier. My dad is one of the owners of our home building company. He's been in this industry for 40 plus years, and he's the one that does all of the biddings for our homes. And so we talked today because at every house that we're bidding out, the lumber just continues to go up and up. And we got an email from our lumber company, and the guy said, if you don't have to build a house right now, don't. Now, I don't know that I necessarily agree with that because I do have clients that ask me, should we wait until the lumber costs go down? And number one, right now, I don't see the lumber costs going down. And if they do go down, it's not like they're going to drop way down. And in the meantime, everything else, shingles, drywall, vinyl, we're having a resin shortage right now, and that goes into vinyl siding, that goes into vinyl windows. So everything else continues to increase. So even if lumber does normalize, I don't believe, the building prices are not going to come back down. At the very least, at some point, the building prices will stop rising because as these costs continue to increase, yes, there's going to be a breaking point at some point if they don't normalize before they hit that point. But if they do, then there are going to be people, and there are people right now, if there's somebody in our area that has a budget of let's say $350,000 for, finding a piece of land and building a house, it's pretty much impossible to do that unless the house is very small and it's hard to find a lot that will, that is zoned to allow for something of that size. So it's already knocking people out of the market. Now there are some people, because of the way that the housing industry is, there's still a shortage of good houses out there. So you've got people that are out there looking in that, $400, $500, $600, $700, $800 million price range. And I'm just speaking of, this is southeastern Wisconsin. In other parts of the country, that price range is probably higher than what it is here. But you still got those people that are out there looking for existing homes and can't find it, so they're going to build, even though the building costs are very, very high. So what's happening? Why lumber is the main thing that I'm talking about here. And I would like somebody, if they're in the lumber industry, to call me out, to respond, because basically, and I don't normally do this without having a lot of information, but I'm frustrated. And I think a lot of people in our industry are frustrated, and I feel like we're being price gouged. I feel like there's one of two things happening, and this is something that my dad said, really, is, they are either very greedy, and they realize that there is still a huge demand for home building, because right now there is. The home building industry is busier right now than it was last year, even though lumber is over double. And when I say over double, to give you a dollar amount, so a 2,000 square foot ranch last year, because I just looked at a budget from one that we finished last year, the lumber package, not including roof trusses, was $24,000 and some odd dollars. And then the trusses were, I didn't look closely, maybe $10,000 to $12,000 for the trusses. But the lumber package, everything but the trusses, $24,000 some odd dollars. Today, that exact same house is $44,000. It's over double. $44,000 and some odd change. It's over double. Why is what's the reason for that? Well, first, going back to the end of last year, and when I say they, I mean the lumber companies. And again, if you work for a lumber company and you're, way up there and you're privy to what's going on, call me out, tell me I'm wrong, give us the facts. We'd all love to hear them. But they said that, because of the wildfires that were happening on the West Coast and because of the hurricanes, that's why the lumber prices went up. Because at that point, they went up big time. This happened at the end of last summer. And that's legitimate. In past years, if there are hurricanes, OSB is something that there's a shortage of, because people are boarding up windows, boarding up doors. So it makes sense that because a lot of the OSB is going down to those areas where there are hurricanes, and we need OSB up here in Wisconsin, we're going to pay more for that. Supply and demand. That makes sense. Okay. So then we heard that, the prices were going to come back down in November and December. Well, that never happened. They kept ticking up. And then the reason was, it's COVID, and the mills aren't producing the amount of lumber that they were before. Okay, yeah, that made sense, because there were a lot of businesses that were operating at half capacity, so that makes sense that the amount of lumber being produced was down. And there's still a huge demand for it. So huge demand, little supply, or half the amount of supply equals big price increase. That makes sense. We can deal with that. That makes sense. So then they were supposed to go down in January. And then we didn't really hear about them going down anymore. They just keep ticking up. And here we are now at the end of April. And my dad's words were, every time he gets a lumber bid back for a house, he's shocked. And for my dad to say that is pretty big, because he's never shocked by anything. He's a very, realistic, trying to find the word to describe him, but normally things like that wouldn't surprise him, but he's concerned about it. We talked about it. So what's the reason? It's either reason number one, the lumber companies are seeing that people are still buying even though they're jacking up the prices. Because lumber, if you take a piece of lumber that's cut from a forest, a piece of dimensional lumber, it's not that the 2x4 that was worth $2.50 last year, and now they're charging almost $8 for a 2x4. It's not because that 2x4 is actually worth $8. That's just not the case. And so it's not that, lumber is worth double what it is. Now lumber is really the only commodity when it comes to home building. So based off of the market and other variables, the price goes up and down. And traditionally, it went up and down. It has just gone up since last summer. So something doesn't smell right with that, and something isn't right with that. So it's not that lumber is, really truly that much more valuable than it was, because it's not. So reason number one is they are seeing that there is still a huge demand for this, and they're saying, why should we lower our prices if everybody's still buying? Okay, I can see that. But not only are they not lowering the prices, they're continuing to raise the prices. So that's reason number one. It's just greed, And because, I can honestly say our company, my dad, my Jim, myself, we would, even if there was an opportunity to gouge somebody that much on a home price, we couldn't do it. We're good, ethical people, and it's just not right to do. So if our cost to build somebody a house was significantly less than what we were charging, to continue to increase our prices, even though our cost is still staying the same, that's just not right. It's not right. So that's reason number one, is that's what's going on. Reason number two is they are driving, and the lumber companies are driving up and I guess I don't know if I should be saying lumber companies, lumber mills, whoever the man is at the top that's making these decisions, because there is that person out there. We all know how the world works, and some group of people, somebody has control of what's going on with these lumber costs that don't directly correlate to the amount of trees that are out there. It's not like there's a tree shortage. And really, COVID, every other industry, go into the grocery store, all their workers are back. You go into all these different stores, all the workers are back. So the lumber companies have had time to catch up. So that shouldn't be the issue. It really shouldn't. It doesn't make sense that's the issue. But I guess that would be reason number two, is that they are driving up the prices because they want to slow down building, because they can't keep up with the demand. So the only way that they can slow down building is by just raising the prices ridiculously until it reaches a point where things slow down, because builders aren't going to build a home for that much. Somebody's not going to pay that much to have their home built. Whatever the reason is, they're making the decision to continuously jack up these prices so that happens, so that things stop. Then they can catch up, and then they can get more supply out there into the market. But I guess I don't understand how that could be the scenario, because there's been more than enough time for these mills to make up for what's going on. And here's another thing too. Look at OSB. So the latest word, from lumber suppliers is that, I-joists, instead of, usually there used to be a 2x10 or 2x12. That was your floor joist. That's what got set on top of the basement wall. That's what your floor was built on. For the last 20 years, I-joists have been used. An I-joist is basically a 2x4 on top, a 2x4 on the bottom, and then in the middle, it's like an OSB material. OSB is also used for roof sheathing, for walls. It's the 3/4 inch tongue and groove that is used on the floor. So there's a ton of OSB in the homes. A sheet of OSB last year was around $10 per sheet. This year, it's over $55 per sheet. Why is OSB so much when it's made from recycled garbage? It's made from recycled wood. So this shouldn't even be an issue of, okay, there's a shortage. I can maybe see with dimensional lumber, because if things did get backed up, things were slowed down, there weren't as many people out there working, not as many trees were getting cut down, not as much lumber was coming into the mills, not as many people were at the mills, so not as much lumber was getting produced. But OSB is a product that's made from recycled wood, from wood chips. Basically, there are companies out there that take pallets, wood scraps, you name it, they throw them through a grinder, they grind them up, and then that gets shipped out to lumber mills. That's what OSB is made from. So why is there a shortage of that? there's really no reason for it. So that's why it's really hard for me to buy option number two, saying that there's just a shortage of material, so they're jacking up the prices to try to catch up with the demand so that they can get enough supply out there. That one doesn't make sense to me. So that kind of leaves option number one, the greed. Jacking up prices because everybody's still building. Why should they lower the prices? Let's keep increasing and make as much money as we can during this time. And I know the old saying, make hay while the sun shines, because that's what I do too. These last 10 years have been really good in the building industry. So, the building industry goes ups, has ups and downs. At some point, there will be a down, and maybe this is what's going to cause that. Silver lining, it's okay if it goes down. I'm not discouraging anybody from starting a home building company. I'm not trying to scare anybody off. Just because things slow down a little bit, that's just a natural part of this industry. And trust me, you want to be there as soon as it starts to go back up. So you don't want to say, you know what, I'm not going to start my home building company now, or let's say you're watching this video a year from now and things did go down a little bit and you're saying, I don't want to start my home building company now. Well, yeah, you do, because once, and if you can get through that and things are going to be a little bit leaner through those times where there's not as many buyers out there, yes, of course. But then as soon as things start to pick back up, you're there for the whole time. You've been established. So now you're a more established builder than the ones that are going to come along when things are just really good. So that's going to mean more business for you and more profit money for you to make when things, go back up again. So that's the reason for still getting into this industry, and for me not saying, okay, I need to look for something else to do, because if we're not going to build 25 homes this year and we only end up building 10 next year, I got to go find a new job. No, that's not how it is at all. You can still do well with doing less homes. You need to adjust a little bit. There's, that's just how things go. And that yes, we're in a little bit of a dip and we're going to be going back up. Now, right now, we are still at the peak and climbing. So none of this may even happen, because I listened to something last week that made me think that, everything's just going to continue on this merry path for the next few years. I hear interest rates aren't going to be going back up until 2024. That's obviously going to help things. But again, these materials that are being jacked up are going to have an effect. And it's not just lumber, it's everything else. And if lumber's doing it, then these other suppliers that are producing alumina for aluminum soffit and fascia, or these other companies that are producing vinyl for vinyl windows and side, they're of course going to be increasing their prices as well, and they have been this whole time as well. And even that is getting out of hand too. Why is there an increase? Typically once a year you get an increase on materials. Why has there been an increase twice this year on shingles? Or why has there been an increase twice this year, and we're only in April, on LP or other or cement board siding or other products that are out there? Why are these increases coming in quicker intervals than they normally do with other products that aren't even wood related? Well, it's because they see what lumber's doing. They don't want to be left out. They know that they can make more money, and it's the same type of mentality. Okay, everybody's building just as much, so why would we lower our prices? Why would we not raise our prices? We're going to continue to raise prices because we can, because the demand's there. So the combination of all this is just, it's not heading in the right direction. So this is in hopes that somebody in the lumber industry sees this, or real big hopes here that a senator or somebody needs to see this, because there needs to almost be like some type of a special task force that and I know I'm just going off here, but do you remember a few months ago when Facebook and Twitter had to appear in front of Congress? And they were basically, I was going to say grilled, but they weren't. That was just kind of a joke, the whole thing. But they had to go in front of Congress and answer questions about what they were doing. The same thing needs to happen here with the lumber companies. They aren't accountable to anybody. They need to be held accountable. Somebody needs to, they need to have an answer for why is lumber double of what it is? Why does it continue to go up? What is the answer? And not just the generic answer of, because the answers that they've been giving us are just BS to cover for either the two options that I just talked about. Number one, it's greed, and they're going to continue to raise prices because the demand is out there. Or number two, they're going to continue to raise prices because they want to stop and they want to stunt the home build industry because they don't have the supply to meet the demand. So the answers that they're giving are basically BS answers that are covering for one of those two things. But basically, they need to be held accountable. There needs to be an answer for why this is happening. Really, it doesn't even matter what the answer is. It just needs to stop because it's not right. No matter which way it is. I mean, I can't, the more I talk about it, I can't believe that it's option number two. How can it be that at this point, they don't have the demand? This happened end of last summer. We are coming into a summer a year later. You're telling me that the mills have not been able to catch up. That just doesn't make sense to me. And again, I'm an outsider looking in. So if somebody can explain that that's what it is, I would love to hear that. But I just don't understand how any other type of business that's out there, if a year ago today, they started experiencing problems where they weren't able to meet the supply. And this just isn't some like upstart company that these lumber industries have been around forever. They're big business. They know how to handle this. So it just doesn't make sense that they're not able to, at this point, a year later, be meeting the supply that's demanded out there. It doesn't make sense. So that's what I wanted to talk about in the video today. I really would like for, this needs to go to Congress. Really, I mean, who else is going to put a stop to this? This needs to go, and I don't really have a ton of faith that's going to do anything either. But I mean, there needs to be somebody who's higher up, or it's either somebody that's higher up, or it's the masses of builders that are demanding to know what is going on. And that's probably the better option because, it just is, So that's what I wanted to talk about today. The silver lining is everything's going to be fine. Lumber prices aren't going to keep doubling and going up for, from here until the end of time. Things at some point will normalize. Existing home values are still increasing. Interest rates are low. Right now, everything's great. It is still starting to eliminate some of the people that wanted to build and now can't build. But back to the silver lining. I love this industry. Still love it. It's amazing. Went through a downtime already in between 2007 and 2010, 11. I don't believe that when we hit our next dip, it's going to be that bad. So even though we might need to tighten up a little bit, we'll get through it. There won't be any problems getting through it. And then there we go, off to the races again. I mean, everything's going to be fine. It really is. But right now, that doesn't mean that you just don't deal with problems as they come up. So right now, this is what the problem is. I think that there needs to be some answers. Somebody needs to be held accountable for this. We need to know why this is going on. There needs to be a stop put to it. And then, again, we can go on about our merry ways. But if somebody's held accountable for it, there's a reason that's given why, or there's a stop put to this, it's going to be because more awareness is being brought up. So if there are any other YouTubers that are watching this, hey, do a video on this as well. There needs to be, if you're not in the home building industry, or you're not somebody that is looking to have a home built, you probably have no idea that this is even going on. I mean, I wouldn't if I weren't a home builder, and if I weren't, somebody that was looking to have my home built by a home builder, this isn't something that I normally pay attention to. So that's, I think as more awareness is brought about and people even people who aren't going to be building a home, people who aren't in the building industry, this is just one of those stories where you can look at it and see that something is wrong. And when something is wrong and when somebody's doing something wrong, they should be held accountable. So I'm beating a dead horse here. That's all I wanted to talk about in this video. We'll see where things go from here. Give this video a thumbs up if you felt like I had some good information. And let me know if you've got any questions that pertain to this, and I'll do my best to help you out there. Have a great rest of the day. God bless.